Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 45 of The Pond. My name is Colton Peganaw. Joined alongside me, we have, the usual suspects. We got Mike Pulford, Curtis Kennedy on deck. We've had a week-ish of playoff hockey under our belts now, and there's been some banger series. This is going to be probably another long episode because there's just so much to talk about, and so much has gone down in the last little bit too, right? So, but yeah, how are you guys doing on this beauty Sunday that we're having? Is it nice where you are, Mike?
Man, the sun just poked its head out, but we've been getting some nasty rain the last couple of days over here. Real windy, but you guys got out on the golf course today, eh? Want to hear about that?
Yeah, Kurt.
Yeah, buddy. I got a little bit of heat stroke, I think. I'm just trying to recover here. Just drink some water and White Claw. So.
I was gonna say I saw a White Claw there.
Oh yeah, grapefruit. And
All
Colorado game starting shortly, so we'll be doing this and watching the game too. So.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I turned off the Carolina Nashville game to come out to record, and boy, that one was an exciting one.
Yeah.
Carolina absolutely dusting them, but somehow down 2-1 last I checked. But that series is a big one. We're gonna get into all of them, and I mean, man, like as you said, Colton, there's been so much that's happened.
Yeah,
dude, we've got so much free hockey. Like, what was it? First 3 games all went to overtime. First three of the playoffs. Some series, almost every game's going to OT. So, some very tightly contested matchups so far.
Yeah, it's just exciting stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't think there's really that much of an upset for any of the, like, pretty much all of the ones that we expected to happen are going that direction. I mean, there's a few that are actually really even up. I know Pittsburgh and the Islanders are 2-2 right now, which is, crazy because that's, I think, the only series out of all of them that are that evenly matched, eh? So,
yeah,
not so easy for some teams to get past some of these division rivals that they've been playing against all season. But yeah, where do you guys want to start in the conferences?
Let's start out west this time. Work our way backwards.
Yeah.
And that's something. I mean, if we start with the Colorado series, big talking point there with the Kadri suspension. So I don't know if you guys want to dive into that right away.
Yeah.
Holy, I'm down. I'm down for that one. That would be a good one. I like, yeah. Go over our predictions in that one.
Yeah. And so we all had Colorado winning this one fairly easily, right? And that Kadri suspension, I mean, 8 games, not a good hit. Definitely suspension worthy. But seeing 8 games, given what we've seen around the league the last little bit.
Yeah, even just lately.
It seems so harsh. So he can still appeal it to an independent arbitrator. I would assume that he will. Although that remains to be seen. But it's really hard to say, like, there's so many plays. I mean, going all the way back to the Tom Wilson one, where 8 games is one thing, 8 playoff games, like usually those are counted for 1.5 times, if not double, what you would consider the regular season suspension. So you think 8 games playoff is like somewhere between a 12 and 16 game regular season suspension, which is crazy because, I mean, according to the rule book, it's been more than 18 months since his last suspension, which means he's not a repeat offender. And taking that into account and considering the fact that we've had other people, Tom Wilson namely, who are considered repeat offenders by the rule book, get away without and like just fined or even like a 1-game sort of thing. It really, like, the lack of consistency is insane to me. I've given up even trying to understand where the Department of Player Safety is coming from on these. And I mean, that's a big loss for Colorado too. I mean, that's basically, if they finish out this series quickly, that's far into the next series as well.
Oh yeah. George Barros, man, like, I don't know how many times we're gonna have to say it on here to like until the day that he gets fired, but he eventually will get fired because it's just ridiculous. Like 8 playoff games, like yeah, Kadri got just like I don't know, and like Sam Bennett's was seemed to me just as dangerous as too, as well. But I think that Kadri, being that he has been suspended in the playoffs too, played into it. But it just still 8 games. I think he should appeal this, and I think he will get games off. So I would jump on that train, getting that ball moving, and getting
Yeah.
some games appealed because I don't know. That just seems ridiculous, especially after the Tom Wilson stuff.
Yeah, and it's not so much that 8 games is harsh relative to that specific play. It's harsh relative to what we're seeing around the league in terms of other suspensions. Like as you said with the Bennett thing, Bennett got 1 game. I think there was a McDonough hit earlier in that game that also probably could have been suspendable. And so it's like there's absolutely no consistency. It seems like they're rolling a dice for it. And even Akeem Aliu coming out with a statement from the diversity. I don't remember what they're called, but the diversity group within the NHL. What, Kurt?
Diversity Alliance or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Basically saying, look, there's only one difference between this and the other ones, and it's Kadri's. But in not so many words, basically saying, look, like Kadri's not white.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if you can go so far. Like, obviously, none of us know George Peros, but it seems to me that if you're selling Make Hockey Violent Again hats in the same style as the Make America Great Again ones, it's not that much of a stretch to think there might be something there. I don't want to accuse him of anything,
Right.
But it makes you think for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know. We can't necessarily 100% say something is like a certain person has a kind of look towards any sort of thing, right? But I mean, it definitely is a good point that he brought up with his tweet regarding the situation, because yeah, realistically, man, like I don't personally think that it's an 8 games sussy. Like that makes no sense to me.
No.
You know, I think it is punishable. You need to make sure that hits like that don't happen. But like you said, Mike, you know, this just happens time and time again. We see a non-punishable hit like punishable, and then vice versa. So you're essentially having stuff that like people get fined or suspended for stuff that is not even close to what some other thing is, but the roles are reversed when it comes to the punishment. It's very strange. And we even had an episode, maybe even like 10 episodes ago, man, that we talked about the consistency of the refs and how like this was right around when what's his face got let go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we were talking about, is that going to play a role into, you know, and it's not even the refs so much this time, it's more of the league. So it's like, is there an all-around problem like with hockey right now? I don't know.
Dude, and we've been talking about the Department of Player Safety since like near the beginning of this season. George Peros has not made a lot of calls that I feel like people have agreed with. And yeah, it's a consistency thing, man. And when you're that inconsistent, you open yourself up to a lot of conjecture and like assumptions about the reasoning behind it, because there clearly isn't a logical step-by-step reasoning for why certain suspensions are given and others aren't. And when that's the case, it's like, okay, well, you're kind of grasping at straws for trying to understand what's going through their heads when they decide on an 8-game suspension versus a $5,000 fine versus nothing at all. So, I mean, like just to compare, like Jordan Staal got a 5K fine from Game 3 in the Carolina Nashville series for a slew foot. Shea Weber got a 5K fine for like a cross check to the arm near the end of the Toronto game last night, right? And like you compare those to the 5K that Tom Wilson got, and it's like completely incomparable. So it's honestly really frustrating to watch too, because you know you it feels like there's no rhyme or reason to it. And so it's tough for Colorado. Kadri's a big part of their team. Luckily, it looks like it probably won't impact that series too much, but against Vegas, you need all the pieces you can get. So, and assuming Vegas wins the other one, so hopefully he's able to get that limited or get a few games knocked off that. But man, like I honestly can't see how George Peros keeps his job past the end of this season.
Yeah, seriously, man. Fuck.
Fuck that guy.
And like, dude, okay, and even like I would be okay with it if he came out and like justified the answers, because like they did come out with a statement for the Kadri thing, and like that's all very well and good, but that statement has to be consistent with the other decisions you make, and it's not. It's like you made this one decision and you've justified that decision well, but then go and use that justification for other decisions, not just this one.
Right.
So
walk it like you
frustrating
talk it,
to see. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we got to dive into the series too. I think we've beat George Peros to death a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, going into the series, one big thing was David Perron, which Kurt, you mentioned, point per game player during the regular season this year. Big loss on the COVID list to start the series. That's a rough one for St. Louis.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I've been watching this series, and like, what was it? Friday night. This was the first game that I could watch all the way through, and other than that, I've just watched the highlights. And man, Colorado is just dominating St. Louis. Like, it's not even fair. I thought St. Louis would win like a couple, but I don't even know. I think they might get swept, man.
Dude, Colorado looked like a wagon.
Yeah, I placed a nice $10 bet on them for a 8 or 9 multiplier at the beginning of the year.
Looking good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that surprised me too is, I mean, Colt, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but Colorado is matching up physically. Landy taking a fight in game 1. That's not something you see every day. They're clearly fired up for playoff hockey. And not only are they better than St. Louis, they're beating St. Louis at St. Louis's game. Like I saw someone tweet something along the lines of Colorado's treating the St. Louis Blues like an AHL team. And that's actually what it looks like. Like there's no comparison between these two sides. And St. Louis just look outclassed all over the ice.
Yeah, it's fairly like high hitting games as well as high scoring games. The last few have been kind of crazy, but yeah, I think the final hits on the Friday night's game were like 44 hits for St. Louis, 22 for Colorado. So a lot of hits, but it's funny because guys are stepping up, like you said, Mike, and Landy doesn't fight often. And like neither does McKinnon, and I'm pretty sure both of them kind of got into separate different fights and stuff. So set the tone of the series nicely, like show these guys that, hey, we don't really care that you guys won a cup a couple years ago. Like now is our turn kind of thing is exactly how they needed to come out and start flying. Like I think everybody was a little worried because Colorado tends to be a little slow out of the gate sometimes. And then, the second and third period is where they dominate. But I don't know, like Curtis said, when we've been watching these games, like even watching the highlights, you can tell the highlights on the NHL YouTube channel are like, I'd say for every 5 video clips, it's like Colorado going down the ice and doing something crazy or, something happened, like a big hit or something like that. And then the next one is just Colorado doing it again. And it's like, then one St. Louis, like kind of okay shot. And it's like, even not watching the games, you can tell that it's just lopsided. But I don't know. You got to win 4 games, right? So not saying that they could reverse sweep and come back, but I mean, yeah, it's just been Colorado all 3 games so far. So
yeah, getting all those highlights of Makar walking the blue line and a couple people rolling around on the ice on their stomachs trying to block the shot as he just skates past them.
Yeah,
it's unreal, dude.
I was saying to a guy that I was on Toyota Hockey League with, I said I think I'm gonna try to bring the Makar like dance across the blue line to the THL. So
good luck with that one.
He's like, buddy. Bold, but I like it.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah,
and I mean, you talk about the reverse sweep, and obviously the way St. Louis plays, the longer the series goes, you're getting beat up a little bit playing against them. But given the suspension Kadri has, if St. Louis were to take 1 or 2 here, might not actually be the worst for Colorado in the long run, because that means they get Kadri back earlier in the Vegas series. So like Vegas or Minnesota. I'm assuming it's going to be Vegas at this point, but that could be beneficial as well. So
Yeah.
kind of a win-win here, as long as they're able to keep it under control. But I could easily see them just taking game 4 as well.
Well, if Newhook keeps playing like this, I don't know if they're going to care about delaying it. They might just roll with him, see if he can maybe he beats someone else out of the spot. Because I think Kadri still gets played when he comes back, but maybe someone else, maybe he pushes someone else out. Like if you're playing well, there's no reason to bring you out of the lineup. So
yeah, and I mean it's something we can touch on in the other series too. But I just want to say, like on the Kadri front, I mean, I'm not saying that like St. Louis was asking for a hit like that by any means, because I don't think that's ever the case. But when you do play that style of hockey against a team like Colorado, who doesn't necessarily have the big bodies and naturally plays that physical style, you're gonna get guys like Kadri that's kind of not their role within the team, but Kadri especially seems like he feels like he needs to step up in those instances, kind of reaching for those big hits that they don't necessarily like have in their arsenal. And then you get someone like Kadri going trying to blow someone up down the middle of the ice. They start getting out of the way. Maybe you reach a little bit for it. You end up making a really, really bad hit, like he ended up doing on Justin Falk. But when you play that style, and we've seen it in a couple other series as well that we'll get into, like once it goes down that road, that's the way it's going to be. And it goes both ways, right? Like Colorado, I mean, you know, like when you're throwing that many hits and that many big hits, the team that's smaller is going to have to kind of reach to try and give some back, and that's where you run into trouble. So I think it's a little bit of a give and take there. Unlucky that it ended up being so bad. Falk looked really out of it, although I'm not sure he's been ruled out for the series yet, so hopefully he's doing all right. But that's going to be one to keep a tab on, because there's a few teams that play that way and they're getting bit in the ass for it, with some injuries. So
and
it's go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Last thing before we move on to earlier this year too, Bowen Byram got like leveled by, I think it was Justin Falk or Braden Shen, and it was a dirty hit. Like left his feet. It was at the boards, jumped and complete headshot on Byram, and Byram hasn't been back since. So
let me guess, no suspension.
Yeah, no suspension at all. So that happened, and Byram has been out since that hit, and he hasn't played since then. So they remember those things, right? So it's not something that, you know, they're gonna let that slide. Like they're gonna keep coming and hitting hard. Like I don't know, 44 hits last game was like, that's a big number, but at the same time, if they're tiny little hits, then it's just a stat, man. Like worry about your goals at the end of the game and not about your hits. Like fuck.
Yeah, and like it's for me, I feel bad for the individual that's been hit. Like Falk, like you never want to see someone get concussed like that, but it's very hard to feel bad for the team as a whole, because it's like, dude, you guys are playing right on the edge here. That easily could have been you making that hit. So you gotta take it as well a little bit, and unlucky that it ends up being an injuring hit. And we'll have to see about that suspension, but it's been a fun series to watch from what I've seen of it. Some of the games are pretty late, but
unfortunately for us East Coasters.
And same with the Minnesota Vegas series, although they had an early game last night on Saturday, so was able to catch a bit of that one. And dude, this has been a banger as well.
Yeah.
Vegas look on fire too after losing game 1-0 in OT. Goaltender duel. They've come out of the gates flying since then.
Goaltender duel, but if the next duel is forwards and defense, Vegas wins that as well. So they are looking real good. I'm happy for Vegas. I had a good bet on Mark Stone to score just anytime goal scorer the other game. Missed it, and then of course he pots a nice short yesterday. That was just nasty to kind of seal the win for them. Like, man, they have some really, really good players. I would love to see Vegas win. Some people don't like them because it's an expansion team. They've only been around for a couple of years, but man, that would be huge. Like Vegas, dirty, good fan base already, would help grow the game. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, dude, watching the games in Vegas has been electric with the fans. Oh, dude.
Yeah, I kind of wish that they had that in Toronto, because when we were watching that first game, we were just like, hey, this feels off. Like, it just doesn't feel, it's not like it sucks, but it's just not as entertaining. Like, I feel like the fans actually do add a little bit of like an entertainment factor to it. Like, you know, a big hit and you hear boos, you know, bad call by the ref, and you hear refs you suck like chant in the background, and it's like, that's the type of shit that I love in the regular season. And in playoff hockey, it's just louder, right? So it's like, dude, keep going.
I don't know what series it was, but apparently in one series the refs actually called up. They accused the like person running the announcements in the arena of pressing a boo button over the loudspeakers for the refs, because they didn't believe that like the 3,000 people in the arena were booing that loud. Really? They're like, yeah, there is no boo button.
Oh my god.
It's just the fans booing you, buddy.
That is hilarious. Oh
yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
So okay, for this series, one thing that has stood out to me big time is the fact that so what, Vegas is up 3-1 now? Is that?
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
because they've played 4 games already, right?
Yep.
Man, what happened to Kirill Kaprizov? It's like, I don't know. It's very telling right now that Minnesota was a good like regular season team, but they just don't have a team that's built for the playoffs. You look at what was our main concern last week's episode when we talked about Minnesota. It was, do they have the offensive?
Wait, Vegas is up 2-1. Sorry.
Yeah, well, exactly, right. Like, does Minnesota have the enough offensive pieces to be able to consistently score and deal with Vegas in like potentially 7 games? And we were like, no, not really. All they have in terms of consistent scoring is Fiala and Kaprizov, and both of those guys have been completely dormant. Like,
yeah,
where are they at? I don't know. Like,
yeah.
And then even the big guys on Vegas, like Alex Tuck has been stepping up huge, even when the big boys haven't been scoring. With Pacioretty still out too, or is he back? I don't really know.
I think he's still out.
Yeah,
but they're buzzing, and it's one of those things, dude. Like, I think we're seeing it a bit in the Edmonton-Winnipeg series too, where if you can match up top line against top line with one side neutralizing the other, that's a huge W when the team that relies more on those high-powered offensive guys is getting neutralized, right?
Yeah.
And you look at like Vegas's top line, top couple lines. You got Mark Stone buzzing around there, best defensive forward in the league, hands down, I think.
Yeah.
He can also obviously produce offensively. So when you're matching those guys up against like a Kaprizov line, or in Edmonton Winnipeg's case, the Scheifele line against McDavid, and you're able to neutralize that, then the depth of your team is able to kind of come to the forefront. And I mean, I think there's no question Vegas is a much deeper team than Minnesota is. And Minnesota hasn't even really been able to neutralize Vegas's top line. So it's kind of as we expected, right? It's like, where is Minnesota actually going to get an advantage here? And it looks like Vegas has really stepped it up for the playoffs, as we expected them to.
Yep.
Off some insane goaltending from Flower. But just in general, like, built for the playoffs. And I mean, it's also, I mean, Kaprizov is a rookie. Granted, he played a bunch in the KHL, but first taste of NHL playoff hockey, I think you got to expect a little bit of a downswing there. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Is it experience? Like, is that the issue?
I think he's just like, they've had fans in their stadium and Vegas. Maybe, I don't know. To me, the NHL, like, there's a reason why people in the KHL or anywhere else, the DEL, come over to play in the NHL, is because the atmosphere, the skill level, and everything is just that much better. And it probably is a little bit intimidating to have that happen for the first time. I'd assume so, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe
also,
like, to be honest, like, Ovechkin really hasn't done much in the other series either. Some people just kind of disappear. Like, you watch that game, you don't really notice them too much. So
yeah, and also, I mean, I'm going to mention it now, and I probably won't talk about it again because otherwise I'll be harping on it all along, and nobody wants to hear that. But the reffing in the playoffs, it's, I mean, I think right now the reffing has been particularly bad, and there have been a number of coaches coming out criticizing it across all the series. But aside from the poor reffing, I think just in general, you have to expect the game to be called looser in the playoffs than in the regular season. And what we're seeing in a couple of series is that does give some teams an advantage. And I'm going to go to the Winnipeg Edmonton series is a big one here. It's like when you rely on your top guys, specifically McDavid, to put up a point a game, couple points a game. Those types of players, those types of stars rely on the refs to call the game to be able to either do what they do or get a power play from it. And once the refs start letting more go, some players lose that edge because, I mean, if you watch that series, there's someone like McDavid skating up the ice nowhere near the puck, and someone's like trailing behind him holding his fucking jersey.
Yeah, like a parachute.
Like, yeah, literally, dude. So, I mean, and I think part of that is that some of these young stars don't necessarily or haven't had the opportunity to learn how to adjust their game to take that into account. McDavid obviously hasn't played in the playoffs all that much, other than that one run they made a couple years ago. And I think you're seeing that be a big thing because if the refs call the game like they do in the regular season, even maybe you get one, maybe two more power plays a game. That's a legitimate advantage. Where if a team, especially a team like Winnipeg, or I mean Vegas as well, you know, a little bit clutchier, a little bit grabbier. If you're able to get away with that stuff, you gain a huge advantage. If the stars on the other team are relying on that not happening, right? And I think like we'll get into it as well, but that's something that makes Crosby so great is that he is successful despite all that. Like he plays the board play, all that nitty gritty stuff. He's unreal at that, and that's what makes him so effective in the playoffs because his game isn't reliant on getting those calls. He plays despite that. And that's something that I certainly didn't take into account in my playoff predictions. But a lesson learned, you know?
Yeah, buddy.
There's always the playoffs provide always the weird situations or scenarios that play out. Like nobody's bracket ever ends up exactly how they pick it because there's something crazy that happens and just messes with it. But I think that's a good point in you saying how they do call it because I totally agree. That's just something that's very frustrating and annoying is that they call games differently. Like we've talked about this in the past where like sometimes they won't call a penalty in the last like minute of a game because it's in the last minute. It's if a penalty, it's a penalty. Take it. I don't know. It's when your team's like, especially in the playoffs, when it's a clear penalty and they just don't call it because it could decide a game. It's like that doesn't take away from the fact it's a penalty.
And you would think these are the best players in the world. They should be able to play the game within the rules of the game.
Exactly.
And I mean, you go back, I think it was a couple years ago where I think someone wrote an article about it where they're basically saying Tampa Bay is gaming the even up calls because they're great on the penalty kill. They're great on the power play. The more penalties that are called in a game, the more advantage they have. So they're just going to take penalties left, right, and center. Eventually, you're going to stop calling them because you want to even the game up. And then they're going to get power plays and they're going to Geno those. So it's an interesting kind of thing. And we've seen in a couple of series, like it's obvious that the calling of the games is a little bit. And I mean, you see those teams that are quote unquote built for the playoffs suddenly are a little bit better because of that. And you can see it like in a lot of series. I mean, in the West, maybe not getting the advantages that maybe we're seeing the other divisions, but definitely teams that are playing that grittier style and not relying on one or two guys to produce are definitely seeing an advantage being able to shut down the top guys on the other teams.
Forgot to push the talk.
Difficulty there. You know? I was gonna say one of the series that it's kind of really like surprised me and how it's been played out is the Pittsburgh New York Islanders one. Like I don't know, like I just thought it would be like some superstars and everything. It's just like everyone's kind of scoring. They're kind of swapping back and forth, having good games, and then like just playing mediocre. But man, that game last night was awesome. I watched the highlights. I didn't get to watch the game, but I watched like the extended ones where it was like 13 minutes and everything. Really good.
Yeah.
Super super interesting. Like just kind of fluky goals, like pinball goals on Jari, but I mean, that's the playoffs. That's why you can just have a crazy bounce, and it's the most unpredictable sport to bet on too. So
Yeah, I have not touched the East in my betting so far.
Yeah, it's
Um,
you're losing money.
yeah, and that series especially, dude, like it's kind of going how we thought, right? Each of us had it going 7 games, I think.
except for Golden.
Colton, you had it in 6,
Yeah, you guys had Pitt, I had Islanders.
right? Um, and yeah, dude, like 2-2 after 4 games, pretty much what you'd expect. Um, and it's a tight one, dude. Like it's coming down to special teams and like fluky goals here and there, as Kurt said. Um, and I mean that one's a tough one. I mean, I can't help but think, like, if we want to dive into the East a bit, I can't help but think whoever wins that series probably wins the division. I haven't been overly impressed by the Washington Boston series, although it's been really really tight. First 3 games all going to OT. Boston's up 3-1 now, I think, in the series. Washington's been really disappointing.
Very
I like,
disappointing. I have not liked
yeah,
watching them at all,
Yeah.
except
yeah.
for that Ovechkin had on the rat. But
Oh my
best thing.
god. Bro,
Yeah.
he got buried so hard. Oh my god. I actually, like, when I saw it, I screamed. I was like, it was just, it's poetic justice a little bit, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, dude.
Kaplan with that hair, it's like that's so French looking. Like you need a little mustache.
Ratatouille.
Awesome.
What I will say though is like the first period and a half, maybe 2 periods of the first game of that series, Boston looked completely overmatched. Like Washington looked bigger, they looked stronger. They looked like they came out flying. Like Boston looked a little bit flat, and it was like, oh shit, this maybe is a wash for Washington. Like Boston really didn't look like they had it. But the game ends up going to overtime. And then Boston comes out game 2, buzzing. And game 2, game 3, both overtime games, obviously all close. But for me, Boston's looked like decidedly the better team overall. And I think the 3-1 series is definitely fair. I do wonder how healthy Ovechkin is, because he really hasn't looked like the OV you'd expect.
He hasn't. No one really has. Like Oshie, kind of Backstrom. It's just that they don't look like they have the makeup to really do anything. Like I don't know. They're getting shut down really really easily by Boston, and just not even like you watch their games. It's all Boston's own time, offense's own time, and then Washington goes down there. They like do a dump and chase, or maybe have a quick rotation, and nothing, and they'll have 2 minutes each period where they actually have good rotation. That's not going to win you anything. So
Yeah, when I
shots through halfway through the game the other day, I was like, come on, like you're Washington, it's Boston. Like I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's true. I forgot about that, where we were looking at the shots and we were actually like, wait, is that right? Like it was 8 to like 20 something. It was ridiculous. But I don't know what I was thinking when I was watching. I think it was the game on Friday. Kurt, was it? Maybe. Yeah. Where it was like, I was thinking to myself, is this where Ovechkin is kind of showing his age a little bit in terms of like, because before he was so hungry to go for every puck, and every battle was a legitimate battle that he was probably gonna win. Like physically he was good, stick checking he was good. He'd obviously sit in his office and just wait for that 1T. But like now it's just kind of, you see their whole squad just kind of almost rolling over every single puck battle. And I don't know whether Boston has this kind of like aura where you know, if you're even slightly scared of them, then they just take advantage of that. But I don't know, man. Fucking Boston is just looking completely overpowering for a Washington team that, you know, like I said in the before we talked about this series, like a lot of question marks. And yeah, Mike, it's very, very good point. Like, is he healthy or not? And that's exactly what we were asking. And he doesn't look like he's fully healthy. So, and not to mention too, it's 3-1 in that series, but that game that they won, was a game one. I think it was game one that they won.
They won game one, yeah.
Yeah, and the TJ Oshie slap shot from the blue line, it literally bounced off of who was in net? Was it Jari?
No, Rask.
Oh yeah, what the fuck am I saying? Different team. Yeah, no, it literally bounced, like hit him, bounced off of his like the back inside of his pad and rolled just basically into the net. Like, it wasn't a good shot to end up in the net. It was just kind of looks like it had spin on it or something. So I don't know. I just don't. I haven't seen Washington be impressive whatsoever, and you know, Boston's probably just gonna put the nail in the coffin with one more game, and we'll be moving on from there, right?
Yeah, dude. And I mean, that second line, we talked about it. That Hall Krejci line. I mean, I forget what game it was, but that Hall goal in front of the net, forehand, backhand, top shelf. Oh baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun because you can tell Taylor Hall is having such a good time playing playoff hockey. You kind of love to see it. Kind of wish it wasn't on Boston, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I want to do some looking into this because obviously, like, Boston drafted Seguin second overall in that draft. I wonder if there's like a trade connection. You know how people do those trade trees? I wonder if there's a trade tree that connects Seguin to them acquiring Taylor Hall.
Probably. I would assume so.
It might be.
Yeah.
Because, dude, and I mean, they got him so cheap. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. Like a discount like that, if they can get him to resign for something that's a little even cheaper than what he would normally get, like in Buffalo, then I think it's GG. GG for well, yeah, I don't know. If Taylor Hall can kind of like take the passing of the torch from the three big boys on the top line and be able to drive that offense from a second line when, you know, when Boston starts to decay into a mid-level tier. I know it sounds weird even saying that, but yeah, I hope Taylor Hall can stay there long term and really, you know, be something again, you know, not just be I don't know. It's against everything I've ever known, but
really, really good though. Like, I was a little skeptical. Mike kept his hype going throughout.
Dude,
the
I
year.
love Taylor
Like,
Hall.
he was like, man, and even years, like I would say past years, like last year, even still high on Taylor Hall. And I was like, fuck, man, like Mike still like thinks Taylor Hall's a Hart winner.
Dude, we've had some heated arguments about Taylor Hall, top 25 player in the league.
Oh yeah. And man, he sure looks pretty fucking good right now. Like, he's fit in really well with Krejci, and he's pretty electric to watch, man. The OT winners that he's been scoring, the big goals, like, for having as little points as he was with Buffalo, he's obviously a player that when the confidence is there, he's playing well. And I mean, there was talk of him signing in Boston last year, but he didn't want to do it because they weren't offering like the money he wants. But obviously, money's not everything. Maybe $5 million deal to play in Boston, that $5-6 million, that'd be a steal for Boston.
Yeah,
Make
dude.
some damage in the future too.
Yeah. And I mean, future-wise, all Boston needs is a young center. Because one of these years, Bergeron is not going to be what he is right now. He's getting up there in age. But this year, I mean, it's always so hard to write them off in the playoffs, and they're looking good. I mean, say which will, but Washington, it's possible Boston's just making them look bad.
that's true.
And it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm willing to give Boston the benefit of the doubt in that sense because of their history of playoff success. But that next series, I mean, whoever, if assuming they win that against Pittsburgh or the Islanders, that's going to be a tough one, no matter what. So that's an exciting division to win because I think we all said it last time, but really anyone in that division looks like they could win it. Maybe not Washington anymore, but Boston, Islanders, or Pittsburgh all seem like a strong contender if any of them make the Final Four. So that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Oh yeah, that'll. I'm interested to see how this series closes out because obviously I had Washington winning this 4-3. Washington
Could still happen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, do I think it happens now? Probably not. But I mean, if Washington does come out of this and win, which maybe it happens before next episode or something, I'd honestly wagon Washington. Like,
Yeah,
that could be a big play to bring them up to another
totally,
spot.
dude.
Maybe that gets them kind of hungry to win another cup. So
Yeah. Well, and another thing too is I think Samsonov played last game. And I don't know when the last time he played was. But obviously Vanacek going down in game 1, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Anderson came in, did a decent job there. But then made a couple iffy mistakes in game 2. Samsonov, I think, has played the game since, and like he hasn't looked bad, but hasn't looked great either.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe he needs a couple games to get acclimatized again. If he can come out buzzing and like steal a game here and make it 3-2, then maybe look out, because Washington's got the pieces. They just don't look like they're playing up to their potential. But it's going to be a tough one against Boston. You'd probably never bet on Boston throwing away a 3-1 lead in this series. So that's a tough one for Washington, but it does feel like Washington is maybe just a little bit over the hill here, and it's going to be hard for them to continue to be competitive if they do end up losing this series in like 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, and then I mean, where do they go from here? Because if you're getting that heavily dominated by a team that you didn't have too much trouble with in the regular season, it's just at some point you got to try to move towards a more playoff oriented team, who I thought the pieces that they have right now are kind of ish built for a cup because we saw them win it so soon ago. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it just looks like Boston and Washington's windows are both kind of not that big, and I feel like Boston's is just just in a better spot to win right now. So
totally, dude. And you go back even to the trade deadline. I mean, both teams made moves. Boston brought in Taylor Hall. Washington brought in Anthony Mantha. And I mean, so far in this series, Hall is clearly the better pickup. Mantha's obviously not bad, but given what Washington gave up, if they get knocked out in the first round here, that feels real bad.
Yeah.
Giving up Vrana and 2 picks, that's a tough one to swallow. But is what it is, right?
Yep.
And I mean, they're gonna have to go on a run here because, geez, dude.
I feel like Vrana is like someone that they like kind of needed to just mix up from what they have. Like they seem like they just have a lot of like power forwards and like not much speed or like pressing like zone entry guys. Like Vrana's a quick skater, and man, you give him a puck and like 1-on-1 or something, you never know what could happen. That gets
Got handles.
everyone kind of focusing on him, and then I don't know. Mantha's like a big power forward, but he's like slow because you can't read him easily. So I don't know. Just feel like they've kind of taken a step back in their play. So
yeah,
and not to mention too, Kuznetsov has also been completely silent in this series, and I mean he was a big part of their cup win a couple years ago, being on that top line or that second line unit, especially for the power play. Like I don't know, he's taken a big step back since the whole diving into the snow and skiing a little bit, but I don't know, just weird stuff happening with Washington. But is there much else to say other than the fact that like Washington is just kind of choking, like they're just kind of choking these games that just, I don't know, they look not completely out of reach, and then all of a sudden just another goal goes in, another goal, and it's like by that point you're done.
Well, and I mean, 3 games have been OT, right? They won one, lost two, so it's not like they're not there. They're just not quite getting across the line. One really bad way to lose an OT goal. I think it was Justin Schultz and Samsonov on a different page. Quick wraparound goal. I think that was double OT actually.
Yeah.
That's a rough one, but I agree. Like, I don't think it's unfair for Boston to have a 3-1 lead in this series. They've looked the better team. And yeah, as we've said, it's going to be an uphill battle for Washington to get back into this one.
Yep. For sure, buddy. Like you said, I'm not touching that with my money. Not even close.
No. I have no fucking clue what's going to happen in either of those series. But the Central has had some tasty games.
Buddy.
Dude, I mean, we got to start with Tampa, the Battle of Florida. Like, holy shit. This series, I mean, fans in the stands. Oh my God, that game 1 was the most electric hockey I've seen in at least a year and a half.
Yeah.
2 years. I don't even know the last time I saw a game that was that hype. Literally had everything. Goals, end to end, hitting.
Great saves.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Literally every whistle there was a scrap.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I was saying to Colton, this game feels like 2 games in one because it was so long because they had like 5-6 minute breakups after every single whistle that they just be feeding each other face washes and punches.
Yeah.
But something about that series, man, this Victor Longberg or Ryan Lomberg,
Yeah.
man, it's been just like absolute shit disturber on the ice, and then potting that OT winner, get the boys fired up. I think Florida still makes this interesting.
Yeah.
At least I hope so, because this is, like you said, been one of my favorite series to watch. It's just been absolutely electric.
Yeah. And I mean, you called it, Kurt. Freaking thinking Tampa Bay was going to run away with it. Lomberg, interesting stat from that game. He scored the OT winner. Every player on Florida had a shot on goal in regulation other than Lomberg. And then he turns around and scores the OT winner. So a well-rounded performance from Florida. For me, though, I mean, we'll see now. Kucherov might be out for the next game. I want to get you guys' take on that play as well. I don't know if you saw it or not. Kucherov and Sergachev may be out for the next game, but it feels to me that Florida is kind of trying to beat Tampa at their own game. And maybe that's how Florida's built as well. But it just feels like they're playing into what makes Tampa good, and they're getting beat for it.
Yeah, they are. They're allowing Tampa kind of just to dissect their team like offensively and just pass the puck into the net. Like that one pass, it was like 3-1. Oh my God, they just like that was a classic pylon or cone passing play, and the cones were Florida because they left fucking Bobrovsky's jock strap up in the rafters, but I don't know. Bobrovsky coming in for Dreger in game 3, was it? After Dreger kind of just shit the bed and let 5 goals in. Bobrovsky not having a good game after that, so.
No, the goaltending's been rough.
So.
And apparently Spencer Knight was in the starting goalie's net in practice today or yesterday. So we might see Spencer Knight actually starting their next game, which would be a bold move for sure. He's looked good in the games he played in the regular season, but I mean, putting a rookie in, especially against Tampa Bay with the shooters they have, it's a little bit of a risky move.
Yeah, that would be, but hey, maybe comes in like the Hamburglar, Matt Murray, or any of these guys that,
Yeah,
Bennington, but
it's true.
Super tilted this year, so.
Yo.
Yeah.
Okay, boys, this is like slightly off topic, but also on topic. I just found something really weird on Twitter, like really strange. So I was trying to find the play where Kucherov got injured. I'm pretty sure Anthony Duclair gave him like a slash to the knee or something like that.
Yeah.
I was trying to find, I type in Kucherov into Twitter and hit latest, right? And usually it brings up at least a GIF or two showing what happened. And I'm like, keep seeing this like Twitter account called Jen Kucherov, and it's just it's is TBL Kucherov fan, and bro, the tweets and replies, like, this account is literally just somebody that takes pictures of the TV of them watching the game and posts it to Twitter. And dude, no joke, there's like 4 pictures per tweet. I'm not even joking. This is actually like, this is some, no, just of everything. Like, there's guy in the box here, then a picture of the coach, and then just a picture of the game, and then a picture of the penalty kill and power play. Like, I have no idea what this account is supposed to be, but this is creepy, bro.
Kucherov fan, baby.
Yeah, Kucherov fan. Wow, okay. Not what I was wanting to stumble across. Just kind of weird, a little eerie. But anyways, yeah, so I mean, is this the hockey gods like kind of, smiting the, I guess both words work, but like Tampa for doing the little like switcheroo at the end, like right before the playoffs? I don't know.
The old switcheroo.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to have your players back? Well, injury, like the big injury to a guy who was already big injured. So,
dude, and that one looked so weird. Because I got a text from an uncle saying like, oh, like, looked like such a dirty play.
Which uncle?
So I went and looked at it. French.
Oh.
Look, went and looked at it, and it didn't look like anything.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking to myself last night watching the Leafs Canadiens series. There were some slashes in that one that were like two-handed, full-on lumberjack chops, and like the person would go down, but they were fine. The one on Kucherov, like it looked like it was on his thigh where his like pants should be padded. So it looked completely innocuous in that sense, and it didn't look like all that hard of a slash either. And like obviously it can catch you in a weird spot and like hurt even if it's not that hard. But how hard he went down, like I'm not sure if that's the side that he had the surgery on. Maybe it hit something sensitive there.
Yeah,
but
fair.
it just looked to me like really like a nothing play. And if he misses time, because he's been buzzing, he definitely did not miss a beat.
Oh my God,
especially on that power play, like, man, he's making Florida pay. So that's a big loss for Tampa. But it did look like, I don't know what you guys think on that, but it didn't look like much.
Yeah, it's just a strange incident. But you know what? You make a good point though that it might have been, he hit a spot that it was either like a funny bone spot on your knee where it just kind of like feels weird, or he hit like a spot where he had surgery, because that might explain why he went down as quick as he did. Like it was
like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like gravity just completely took over and he just boom right to the ground. So
it was hip surgery, wasn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Was it his right hip? Because I think it was his left leg that it got slashed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was left hip.
Yeah, but regardless, just a very, very weird play. And I don't know, for a series that has been very physical, it seems like something like that would be the last problem in terms of an injury. You know what I mean? So I don't know, very strange. But it's been, I mean, he could have been embellishing it a tiny bit, but that's like a pretty good sell if you're trying to get like a call like that, So
yeah. And John Cooper came out. John Cooper criticized the refs pretty heavily after that game, basically saying like, look, like all this shit about playoff hockey and these like tougher plays and stuff, it's bullshit. And it's like, well, hey, dude, maybe look at how your team's playing, because you're giving as good as you get. It's the same as the St. Louis one, right? Where it almost feels like Florida has elevated their game in that sense to match what Tampa Bay's bringing. I mean, you got Pat Maroon doing a little chicken dance in game 1.
Yeah, oh my God.
Like Tampa Bay lives for that type of hockey. They're big, they're mean, and then they have that high-end skill, fast on the top couple lines there. So they've got everything, obviously, but it's definitely not a one-way street. And I mean, it does look like Tampa Bay is a little bit like a little bit outclassing Florida here. Maybe some of Florida's inexperience in the playoffs is playing in, but uh, definitely a series. Like, I mean, it's hard to complain one side or the other on the reffing in that one because it does feel like both teams are getting an advantage from the refs not calling everything. So to turn around and be like, hey, like they're not calling that much, like, dude, you guys would be getting screwed just as much as the other guys. So
Yeah.
having said that, the way it has been so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Absolutely electric. I think at one point Radko Gudas had 11 hits in the first period of a game, which is just crazy.
Oh, he was lighting people up. Like lighting
Dude.
people up as per usual though, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. And
Buddy's all over the place.
It's the perfect word to describe it was exactly what you said, Mike. It's electric. Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Electricity. It's
Electric factory, baby.
yeah. So definitely I would say the most entertaining, because I love watching Colorado play and I always think that their games are fun to play or fun to watch, but man, you can't say that Florida Tampa isn't the best series and like the best games that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
So
And it has been so fast paced. One interesting thing here is Keith Yandel. I think he's been a healthy scratch the last 2 games. This is an interesting one for me because on one hand, he has, I mean, obviously he's on like a 920 game Ironman streak, which is not impacted by missing playoff games. It's only regular season. So the health bombs don't impact him in that sense,
which is huge.
which is really nice. But like you think about him as like one of their better defensemen, at least for moving the puck, quarterbacking the power play and whatnot. But he also does kind of seem like the player that makes a lot of those like quote unquote professional decisions. You hear about it a lot in basketball, like not getting dunked on, but maybe not going into the boards first, like small things that maybe might prevent like injury or could potentially prevent injury. And I'm not saying this is a knock to him because fuck, dude, who wants to break a leg or whatever, right? But it seemed to me like maybe he wasn't keeping up with the pace of the series and wasn't getting into those areas that were kind of being forced upon him because of the way the series was being played. And after that Bennett suspension for game 2, they brought in a 7th defenseman who was what's his name? He played for a bunch of teams. I can't believe I'm forgetting. But anyways, Anton Strawman came in as a 7th defenseman, played a decent game. So it looked to me like after that, they were like, we're keeping Strawman in, Yandel out for game 3. And I think it was effective. So interesting one there to keep tabs on, whether he's going to be able to fit back into the lineup and whether he can get his legs under him, because it really did look like he was just a bit off the pace in those first couple games.
Yeah. I mean, talking about a little bit of an electric series, another one that we got in this division, which is currently right now going into overtime, tied 3-3. Carolina Hurricanes and the Nashville Predators. Guys, this has been, to be honest, we need Carolina to pull out a Dubsky here. But that being said, Nashville's making it interesting. Like, these games have been very, very, like, game 3 went to double overtime where Preds took a 5-4. And before that, it was all Carolina. They got a 3-0 dub in game 2 and then won 5-2 in game 1. So it's been really all Carolina for the first 2 games. And even the third game, I don't think that we watched a whole lot of that one. But I mean, for it to go to double overtime, it looks like there's a little bit of life in the Predators at home. So
having said that, this one's going to OT. Carolina's out shooting them 44-26.
Oh yeah, okay. So
wow. And Steve's got an assist, eh?
Yeah, second assist of the series. Second assist of the series. And that's another thing I wanted to say. Their fourth line has been buzzing. They're starting, it seems like every period, they start with the fourth line, which is Steve Martinook and Brock McGinn. McGinn has 2 goals tonight. one of which was assisted by Steve. But especially that first game, dude, that fourth line was absolutely buzzing. Steve looked amazing. Love to see that, obviously.
Yep.
Looked at home in the playoffs. And even like I was talking to Chris about this, even when Carolina, because they went down 2-1, I think, in that game, they kind of looked like they were just like, how the hell are we losing to this team? Like, they didn't look all that concerned about it. Obviously, they came out and just shit on them in the third period, 5-2 dub at the end of the day, and then 3-0 in the second game. This is a series fans in both home arenas, so the home away makes a little bit more of a difference. And as the top seed, you're never really in trouble until you lose at home. So even if Carolina does lose this one, 2 OT losses in Nashville, I think they'll still be feeling comfortable going back to Carolina for Game 5.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I missed a third period on this one because obviously we're recording right now. But Carolina looked like they were completely outplaying them. And this is not sustainable for Nashville to win 4 games this way. They're like literally almost getting doubled on shot attempts and shots on goal. One thing I did want to mention in this series, games 2 and 3, Nashville had 32 power play minutes versus Carolina's 16. Carolina pulling out the dub in game 2. I think at the end of game 2, Nashville was 0 for 11 on the power play in the series.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so Carolina has had definite disadvantage in the penalty box, special teams department there. And I think this game, it's a little bit more even. Carolina was not really able to capitalize on their power play opportunities, but it really looks like a series. We'll see what happens in overtime, may end up going to a game 5 and 6 here, but Carolina looks like so much the better team. I would be shocked if Nashville walks away with this one at this point.
What is it, 2-1 Carolina right now, or 3-1?
2-1.
2-1, yeah. So this could be a really big game going into OT right now.
Yeah. If Nashville loses this one, they're screwed.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing about the playoffs. You win this and it's 2-2. It's evened up. It's just like starting the series at 0-0, but
yep.
You lose it and it's 3-1, and you got a pretty good mountain to climb, and unless you're like strong-willed or don't really think of that, diamond hands, you're gonna do fine. So yeah.
Also, not to mention that we have to give a quick shout out to Curtis's favorite goaltender. Alex Nedeljkovic has been playing unreal. And if they have had any doubt of who the goaltender of the future is for Carolina, I think they found him, and they found him on a pretty good deal, if you ask me. Man has been lights out in a thing, yeah?
Dude, he stopped a 2-0 in this game. Blocker side, like bang, bang, pass back and forth as you usually see on 2-0s. Slides back across, gets his blocker up. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Unreal, dude.
Dirt Scarelli nasty, right?
Dirt Scarelli.
Yeah.
Fast, man. He gets up quick and his back.
Yeah.
And that's what's impressive.
Yeah. And this series, I have to say, has been good for me betting wise.
Yeah.
I hopped on, I think it was game 2, hopped on Aho first goal scorer. Just had a feeling. Made a quick buck there.
Yeah, that's a good call, buddy.
Oh, yeah, bud.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, this one, I mean, obviously today we'll have to see going into OT, but I find it hard. I have trouble seeing Nashville pulling this series out. Although I will say 2 games going to OT here, it is closer than I expected.
Yes.
And I think part of that is probably down to the fans. I mean, Carolina had, I think, almost full capacity in game 2, half capacity game 1. That was an obvious advantage for them. And the same can be said now for Nashville. I think they're close to full capacity. Taylor Luan, an O lineman for the Tennessee Titans, mucked a beer halfway through the first period, I think. Hard to compete with that, right? So the building's buzzing. But if the Hurricanes can get a dub here, like, oh, buddy, it's over. I expect them to win this either way, but tighter than you might have thought coming in.
Yeah. And I mean, usually it's a nice little surprise when it's a little bit tighter than you expect going in, but to be honest, like sometimes when it's a little too tight, you can't quite get it in there. But oh wait, sorry, we were talking about I'm just but I think that this, if Nashville wins, which will, I think there's like 7 or 6 minutes left in the intermission, and then OT is going to be underway. I imagine it's going to finish pretty quick. But even if it goes like, because if Carolina wins this game and they go home and they just have the crowd buzzing, they just put them in the dirt. They just put them to bed. Good night, Predators. We'll see you next season. Probably not in the playoffs, but we'll see you next season. I swear, I think it's Matt Duchene, man. He's not really that great. He's overpaid. I wouldn't be surprised if they leave him unprotected. He's the black cloud of the NHL.
Matt Duchene.
Yeah, black cloud of the NHL. He's the new Taylor Hall for me. So, and also thank you for giving us all those players back when you sucked ass and we traded you to Ottawa. So, appreciate it a lot, buddy. But that being said, guys, I don't know. Do you have anything else on this series?
One last thing in the game today. I didn't know this. Like, it's nothing to do with the series specifically, but there's a high sticking penalty called on Svechnikov, and the buddy was bleeding, so it was going to be a double minor. And they actually were able to review it. Like I guess the refs can decide to review those, and then when they reviewed it, it was a Nashville player's stick that cut their own player.
And then
they took away both penalties. Like the double minor was gone and the high sticking was gone.
Wow.
I didn't know that was a reviewable play. And I guess it has to be the refs that decide to review it. You can't challenge it.
Right.
But I just never seen that before, so I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Was that the one on Ryan Ellis?
No, I forget who it was that got high sticked.
I was gonna say, on Twitter, I just saw that there was a Nashville player that got a high stick from his own player, and then as he's like going into the boards, the Carolina guy high sticks him as he's like falling over, so he got double doinked. It's like
maybe that was it then. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but just that's bad timing. I just saw the guy got high stick twice within 2 seconds. It's falling to the ice. Like, are you serious, man? Like. All right, guys. Well, swinging back up to the north. I don't know about you guys, but Winnipeg hype train, baby.
Dude, this is what I was talking about with the reffing and like playoff refs. It feels like Edmonton's getting screwed, but Winnipeg is playing well and Hellebuck is playing well. If you told me that there were going to be 4 goals allowed by goalies through 2 games, I would have told you you're on crack. Like 1-0 overtime win for Winnipeg. That is exactly how Winnipeg wants the series to go, and that's exactly how Edmonton doesn't want it to go. Mike Smith's been good. Edmonton just can't get anything going. They play again tonight, game 3. I wonder when the last time McDavid's gone 3 games without a point is, because if he doesn't get a point tonight, they are well and truly fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, friggin' rates, bud.
Yeah. I don't know why, honestly, watching this after I had Winnipeg only winning this 4-3. Like, this looks like they might win 4-0 at this rate. Like, unless Edmonton turns it around, which tonight will be a huge game. Because if they kind of just whimper out again, and they have one of these low-scoring games where, like you said, it plays to Winnipeg's game style, they're just done. They're just flat out done. Like, Hellebuck's not going to have a couple games where he's just bad. Unless there's an injury or something. So, yeah, I don't know. McDavid's got to do something. This is also what you said earlier, in that they just rely on like too few guys. Like Draisaitl, McDavid can only pull your team so much without other guys having to pull their weight too. So they gotta get more than just their top guys going. And Mike Smith's keeping them in it, man. I honestly thought their goaltending was the biggest issue in this series. But it's been one of the stronger things. It's just been their overall forward play. So
yeah, and like Winnipeg's just matching first line on first line. They're putting the Scheifele line out on McDavid, and as we talked about, like the bottom 6, maybe the bottom 9, depending which line Draisaitl's playing on, is 100% in Winnipeg's favor. We thought maybe they'd be putting their third line on McDavid, but if you neutralize those first lines, it's like such an easy dub for Winnipeg. And part of it goes back to it that it seems like either McDavid isn't used to it, or I don't know, that there is a way to play around it, but the fact that refs are calling less in the playoffs is clearly playing in Winnipeg's favor here. You find a number of clips of McDavid just sneaking like quick holds or a stick across the chest. So if you're able to do that to slow him down, Edmonton's really hamstrung there. But I mean, Winnipeg has looked the better team, like up and down the lineup. So it's hard to say that they don't deserve to be winning this series 2-0. But it feels like at some point McDavid's got a breakout. That was my big turning point in this series. I thought, can't bet against McDavid after the regular season he had, and maybe the playoff hockey is too much, and maybe he's going to have to learn how to adjust his game for that. But I can't help but feel like there's no way you shut him down 3 games in a row, right?
Yeah. I mean, I personally think it can't be done, but especially with the season that he had. Yeah. That being said, though, it's essentially the series is as easy to break down as it's McDavid or bust. That's essentially what it is, and there's nothing more to read into other than that. Like the fact that we broke down this series so hard and been like, oh yeah, Ehlers is going to be out for the Jets, and all this stuff. Like, oh, so many other aspects are going to play into the series. I honestly think you can just simplify it to what I just said. If McDavid or Draisaitl do not get a point, or they aren't doing something on the ice, then Edmonton loses, and that's just how it goes. Like, you look at everybody who scored for Winnipeg, and you got Kyle Connor on the board so far, Blake Wheeler, who else?
Stastny scored the OT winner game.
Yeah,
too.
Tucker Poolman. So just
2 empty netters.
Yeah, so it's essentially really everybody that has. You even had Dominic Toninato, who's like just a guy who's just been a journeyman in the NHL. So just Winnipeg's finding ways to score. And again, the offense has been obsolete completely in the last 2 games. So McDavid or bust. That's essentially it. And usually I bust when I watch a McDavid play, but I've gotten none of that. So
this is a hockey podcast, dude.
Yeah, sorry, PG.
But no, I mean, also one of the things that stuck out to me was this was the first series that we saw in the North, Wednesday night, and having watched that Tampa Florida series, Carolina Nashville, like watching them with fans there, the intensity, like not just because fans were there, but the intensity of that first period of the Winnipeg Edmonton series literally looked like a fucking preseason game. It looked like neither team was there to play. Like, dude, I was literally like, why am I even watching this?
I was thinking the same thing, man.
Crazy. And it's like, you would think these guys have probably sat at home and watched some of the other playoff games. You'd at least think that they'd come out buzzing. And I think that partly played into Winnipeg's favor because they were able to neutralize the game. It hasn't looked to me like Edmonton's really come out with a fire under their ass yet. And that's what you need in the playoffs, regardless of what team you are, how good you are. And they really need it now. I mean, if they go down at 2-0, it's probably already insurmountable, but 3-0 is 100% donezo for them. So they're going to have to come out buzzing and get past the fact that they don't have fans. Because even in the other series, which we'll get to, I mean, different factors going into game 1 being a little bit low intensity, but game 2 in Montreal, Toronto, no fans there. Those teams were buzzing around the ice. So Edmonton's got to find a way to fucking get it going. And one last note here, got to give a shout out to Logan Stanley playing for Winnipeg. Kitchener kid, absolutely buzzing around in the playoffs, making some good plays, looking good, looks like he belongs there. So love to see that from a hometown kid. But that series, game 3's tonight. That's a huge game. Absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Can you imagine if Montreal Toronto goes 7 games and Winnipeg sweeps Edmonton. Like, oh my God,
dude.
because you know already from what we've seen in the couple games, the Montreal-Toronto series has been very physical, which I wasn't personally expecting it to be as physical as it's been so far. And that's beside the whole John Tavares thing, but it's crazy because I thought that Winnipeg-Edmonton was going to be a lot closer than, Toronto-Montreal, but it so far seems like the other way around, which is just kind of funny how hockey works like that, But that's also why I haven't been betting any money. So
yeah, dude, and the way Winnipeg's playing, that's a scary matchup for anyone, dude. I don't think anybody wants to play them.
Yeah.
Toronto included. But if we want to dive into that last series,
Yeah, let's go for it.
As you said, you're not expecting the physicality, and I mean, we all kind of said going in, Caulfield's going to be a big move here because you need that high end goal scoring, you need that it factor, something to get you off the ground. He's been healthy scratch game 1 and 2 so far. Surprised me a lot going in, but the way they're playing, it kind of makes sense to me. They're using the speed they have to lay a lot of bodies. Very, very physical series. And I don't know. I mean, we got to touch on the John Tavares thing here. I think presumably everybody's seen it by now. Just awful to see. Really, really awful scenes. Looks like he's going to be all right. Definitely escaped with less injury than maybe it looked like in the moment. But I just got to give a quick minute here to tell CBC, Sportsnet, whoever the fuck was broadcasting that game, they showed that play at least 100 times for absolutely no reason. When it happened at the intermission and then again at the start of the second period. And it's man, this is just gratuitous violence. Nobody wants to see this. And imagine being his kids or his family watching the game and having to see that 30 times. What the fuck?
Yeah, they just kept going and going and going. And when you thought that there wasn't another angle, there was another angle. And it was all right,
Nobody
watch
needs
it.
to see that.
You see a car crash, you're like, ooh, that was bad. And then you see it about 1,000 times. You're like, hey, why am I watching this still? Get this off the screen. Come on. Yeah, absolutely brutal. And not only that, but it was also, I think it was the Toronto Star or the Toronto Sun. I can't, but
Sun.
Yeah, the Toronto Sun, brutal front page photo, pretty much showing John Tavares all bloodied up and stuff as he was on the ice. And I don't know. Dubas came out.
Didn't they make the headline Captain Crunch too?
Yeah, exactly. Just
Disgusting.
super insensitive. And just there's no room for that. And when it if you're gonna make that your headline in the picture and stuff, just don't even report on it, seriously. And this isn't the first time that the Toronto Sun has come out with an insensitive headline and photo to go with it on the front page of the newspaper. So I don't know who decides what's good and what's not, but they definitely need to fix that, because just a really bad look. And I mean, this has been, how many people were watching that game? Millions and millions and millions of people. Two of the biggest hockey teams in the league are going at it for the first time in years. And then that happens. It's all right, how about you show it once, cut to commercial break, that's it. That's all. Let people know what happened, and that's really all that needs to be said and done,
And if people want to see it again, there's ways to find it again. Most people are probably watching, they can DVR back or whatever, find it online. You don't have to show it on a repeat for people watching the broadcast that probably don't want to see it 32 more times.
Yeah.
And dude, and part of it looked so bad, man. The way he tried to get up and fell over backwards, sickening.
That's what got me. I don't really get queasy or anything like that, but when I saw that everything, I was just he looked like he was trying to get up, and then he just falls backwards, and you're that's when someone's gone. Because when he got hit, I was this guy's. I was he's out cold, because his arm started moving up, tensing up. That's usually a telltale sign of someone being unconscious. And then he basically got up and just collapsed like that, and Chris actually said, he's like, is this the first time that we were going to witness someone potentially like pass away on the ice? Because you look at that hit, man, like the knee, like you're wearing knee pads too, like just to the front of the head, like that could be severe. Like your brain is such a fragile piece of your body, and the way he turned over at the last minute, it was probably the worst like scenario that he could have had happen, but looks like to be protected from the helmet. So I mean, there's a reason why you wear them. So
100%. This is like a helmet saved his life type moment.
Yes.
No helmet there, dude. He's fucked. And I mean, one thing, like having heard now, I mean, he's out a minimum of 2 weeks because of the knee injury he got from the original Sherratt hit. The concussion and stuff, like now that we know no spinal injury, no cranial injuries outside of a concussion, obviously. It looked really, really bad, but most bad hits that you see like that where someone ends up unconscious on the ice, it's often a shoulder or an elbow to the jaw. The fact that he didn't, like, it was contact to the helmet. The way he tried to get up looked really awful, but it is possible that he escaped this relatively to how bad it looked unscathed. I would not expect him back for the playoffs at any point here. But what looked like a life-altering and potentially career-ending injury at the time now looks like, okay, this is he could potentially recover fully from this and play out his career healthily. So that's good to see, but awful. Like 10, like that's the thing too. He signs in Toronto, wants a deep cup run. To get injured 10 minutes into the first game, man, that's just brutal for him. You got to feel bad. And you got to feel for Toronto. Like, man, Austin Matthews looked like he was going to be sick on the bench. Like, the fact that they were able to finish that game and not just get fucking run over was impressive in its own right, man.
Yeah, when we were watching, sorry, Kurt, go.
No, I was just literally going to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, when we were watching that game, we were like, after it happened, like we were already pretty kind of like shocked by it, but then we were also looking at, and the hockey just looked like so uninspired. Like it looked very like, okay, the Leafs bench doesn't even know what to do right now. Like Mitch Marner looked like Mitch Marner usually looks like he's about to pee his pants like 75% of the time anyways, but after that happened, he looked like he had already peed. Like he looked like he had a fully soaked hockey pants on. So I was like, this hockey is weird, because you could tell just both teams were kind of out of it. And then the rest of the game kind of started to pick up again. But yeah, that kind of a situation that happens in a game that's already so emotional because it's the playoffs and it's two rivals and everything like that. There's a lot on the line, especially for Toronto. Like it's not good to lose your captain in the first game. And that being said, we can also just touch quickly on like the Corey Perry having to fight Foligno thing. Yeah. I know, Mike, you originally said that you were you didn't really understand why Corey Perry had to fight him there. It was obviously an accident, right? Yeah. And you know, I would say if it was any other sport, it would make sense for it not to happen. But it being hockey, it's kind of like the code, the unofficial rule book, pretty much saying like, hey, you know, if you took out one of our players, doesn't matter if it's an accident or not, you face this incident now, and you can either, you can answer the bell when it rings, or you can just choose to have this series be completely out of hand for the rest of it. And I think Corey Perry, although didn't want to fight, good thing on him to not dummy Nick Foligno either, because can you imagine if...
Yeah, he turtled.
Yeah, big time. He didn't throw a single punch. Can you imagine if immediately after the situation with Tavares, he goes and just lights out Foligno? Like, oh man, it would the rest of the series would have been just a bloodbath. Yeah. So,
and for me, like originally I was like, oh man, like you can see Perry just feels awful.
Right.
I think he went to the room right after he got out of the box. Like I don't even think he wanted to finish the game. As someone that is fairly good friends with Tavares off the ice, apparently. But hearing the justification for it, basically what Foligno said was, look, like That's our captain. Whether it was intentional or not, this like the fight eliminates any sort of gray area.
Right.
And that can give us both teams, because I think both teams needed it, give you closure on the play and move on with the game, move on with the series. And I think mentally for both teams, Leafs especially, being able to kind of, okay, that's that reset, let's play the game, is helpful when it's something so terrible like that. Like, it looks so bad. But I felt bad for Corey Perry, man, because he clearly felt bad. He like obviously didn't, and I think part of it is he doesn't want to look like it was on purpose, right?
Right.
Having to fight, it's like, oh well, was that on purpose? Do they think that it was on purpose? But hearing the explanation after the game, like kind of clarifying it a bit, making it clear that it wasn't because, oh yeah, we thought Corey Perry cheap shotted him. That's fine in my books. It is what it is. And I'm interested. Like, they didn't really go after Sherratt in game 2, but it was interesting to see what Versteeg had to say about it, where that first hit, and I've watched it a couple times since, he doesn't really make contact with his shoulder. He gets maybe hip on hip, maybe a little bit lower. And it's not a penalty, probably, on the ice. But it's the type of hit that is a little bit reckless, and not saying that it's always going to lead to a situation like that, but that's the type of hit that can injure people, and that's the type of hit that Sherratt kind of makes a living making. So I wouldn't be like, I was kind of surprised that the Leafs didn't go after him at the beginning of game 2, and he laid a couple iffy hits in game 2 as well. So it's gonna get scrappy. But from the series perspective, I mean, Paul Byron scored an unreal shorty to win game 1. What a nice goal that was. But Leafs obviously letting in a goal right after they started play again after the incident. I'm willing to kind of write that game off. Not to take anything away from Byron's goal and Montreal playing out that game, but game 2, dude, the Leafs looked like the team that we were expecting coming into the playoffs. They looked much better than Montreal. And I mean, we got to talk about the coach's challenge, but when Montreal got the penalty on that coach's challenge, I almost thought, like, I was thinking, like, Toronto needs to not score here. So they go up 3 goals before the end of the second period. Montreal is just going to be taking runs the entire third period. And the fact that it stayed close enough that Montreal still had to play for the game, I think kind of saved that game from devolving into just a complete shit show. But I think we took Toronto in 5. Colton, you said Toronto in 7. It might be closer. Carey Price looked unreal at times, but game 2 really solidified for me. Toronto just looks like the better team. I don't think there's any question about it.
Right.
Yeah, they looked so much better last night. It was like, it was 5 minutes left and it was 4-1, and I was like, Bram, you okay with us changing this to the Vegas Minnesota game? And he's like, no, man, I want to watch it. I want to watch the whole thing. And I was like, are you serious? It was empty net, 6.5 minutes left. Let's just switch to another. Literally 30 seconds later, Mark Stone scores in the Vegas game. I was like, yeah, we missed that goal. It's like, fuck, but Toronto just looks better right now. So I mean, if they were to lose this, realistically, I'd be super disappointed.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing where this series feels like it's actually probably pretty close. But you look at the two teams, Toronto, it feels like is a legitimate cup contender, even if this particular series is a close one. Whereas you look at Montreal, and it's like, if they win this series, or if they're the team that gets out of the North, it's like, God damn it, why is that the Canadian team that's going? Because they're just going to get shit pumped.
Yeah.
Whereas Toronto, it feels like, can compete against those higher quality sides. But I mean, Carey Price, playoff Price, baby, he's coming back. I didn't see it coming. I thought he was going to be average at best. But he's looked good. And they're going to have to, they have a back-to-back coming up their next 2 games. So backup goalies will come in, Jake Allen and Freddie Anderson for one of those games, presumably. I don't really think it makes a difference. Wouldn't be shocked if Montreal took a second game at some point, but I feel like this is going just about as expected from Toronto's perspective.
Yeah, and that's just kind of first game, shit happens. Second game, all right, yeah, this is exactly the Toronto Maple Leafs that we've seen for this whole season. So Yeah, I don't know. I still think it could go 7. I mean, they're going back to Montreal now. These two games are going to be really important for both teams. If Montreal I think Montreal has to win both of these games in order to win the series if they have a shot at winning them. If they lose even one, it's going to go Toronto, like back to Toronto, easy money. Easy money, right? So,
Yeah.
not that I want the Habs to pull through or anything, but make it interesting at least, right? So,
Yeah. And I will say, losing Tavares is obviously massive, like huge loss. But the moves that Kyle Dubas has made, Jason Spezza, Joe Thornton, Galchenyuk, even Wayne Simmons, like those guys, especially Spezza and Thornton, guys that are like high end skill guys that are maybe past their prime, but they can still sort of fill that role. And Jason Spezza
big
did a
time.
great job of it in game 2, right?
Yep.
So it makes that loss hurt just a tiny bit less than it might on a team where John Tavares is your number one guy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Austin Matthews also was absolutely buzzing in game 2, laid out Brendan Gallagher. His goal was filthy as well. So Toronto looks like they're going to be able to cope with it. Maybe it's going to make more of a difference later down the road if they're playing a deeper team like a Winnipeg potentially. But dude, we got to touch on this coach's challenge because what the fuck?
oh my god, dude. Yeah,
Almost like you were tilted last night. Like
they did. It was
are you fucking kidding me? You're challenging this, and it was such a weak call. And you'd watch Mark Bergevin up in the box, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's clearly goalie interference." It's like, where are you even getting that? Like, are you watching a completely different stream than us? So
yeah.
And
Oh.
it's such a bad look for the GM to call down and make the coach challenge something because that's like Ducharme is also an interim coach. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, well, he doesn't really trust the coach or the coach is on his way out. The GM really shouldn't be doing that anyways. You have a video guy for that exact reason. And then to have it be such a blatantly stupid coach's challenge. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a worse coach's challenge.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like what? It's just awful, dude, all around.
Yeah, I was Kurt said it before, but dude, I was actually like a face palming so hard watching that game. Like, I'm like, dude, what are you saying? Like, you're down 3-1, you just got scored on, and it was just like one of those goals that, yeah, okay, it sucks to have that happen, but it happens. But then you challenge it and put them on the power, like you put Toronto on the power play. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. And it would, and I don't know what they were saying. Like, they must have saw a completely different shot than we did because when it showed Bergevin in the box and he was like, yeah, he was pointing at the TV. He's like, yeah, I saw it. It's right there. I'm like, no, dude, no. Like, I could have watched one video. Give me one video, one angle, and I'll be able to tell you if it's, and oh my God, by far, that might be the worst attempt at calling a goal back by a coach I've ever seen. And you know what I'm saying by the coach, because you know the coach very well could have been like, no, we're not challenging.
Well, that's the thing. Do you think he could have?
Oh, 100%.
If the GM calls down and you're an interim coach, do you not think maybe he was just like, oh fuck, I have to do it?
Well, I mean, to be honest, if I'm Ducharme, I already know I'm not staying. So because they've had an absolutely atrocious end of the year. So oh my God. Okay, sorry. Nedeljkovic just made an insane save on the Black Cloud. So I'm really glad that he saved that. So it's
the Black Cloud.
Yeah, for those that was actually dirty by Duchesne, but to be honest, I can't give him any length. Can't give him anything, bro. You know what they say, right? You give him an inch, they take a mile. So
yeah,
I always tend to give inches, but anyways, so yeah, guys, the North Division down as well. That looks like all the stuff. Is there any other storylines that you guys wanted to touch on before we
Well, just two things. First, I wanted to say on the coach's challenge thing, watching it, and then the challenge took a while, and I was like, oh fuck, like, are they actually going to call this back? But I think it was because at the exact same time there was a goaltender interference call in the Vegas Minnesota game, so they had to review two at once. So that's probably why it took longer, because there was no reason that call needed to be or take as long as it did. But then also, do you guys think Cole Caulfield comes in for Game 3?
100%.
Hopefully, like.
I mean, I could see him not being able to stand up to the way Montreal's playing. Like, that physical game is not Cole Caulfield.
Yeah.
He gets tossed around like a rag doll.
Yeah.
But if you're Montreal and you're down, like you go down 3-1 in the series, what else do you have to lose, right? Like the chances of Caulfield getting seriously hurt are low, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah,
like in
but it's
theory,
just how they're trying to play the series, right? They're trying to beat the shit out of Toronto, and it's only 1-1 right now, right? So
yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you're 4 games into a series and your goal going in was to beat the shit out of Toronto, and that's not working, then you need to switch it up. And
yeah. So you think it takes 2 more games if they're down 3-1, he comes in?
Yeah, 100%. If he's not in by next game, which I kind of think that he'll be in next game, but
yeah,
we'll see. Obviously. Also, did you see the Kotkaniemi thing with him putting after he scored, he came out of the box or something? He put the 4 up to the.
Yeah, what was that?
That was so he put a 4 up for the 4 scratched players that were like not in the game that night. I don't know.
Oh, actually?
Yeah,
Did
I
he
don't
say
know.
that's why?
Yeah, 100%. Because that's what they said on the broadcast. So I don't know if that's the real reason. That very strange. I don't know why you would.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would toss up a 4 for like Cole Caulfield, and like I don't know who else was scratched, but it wasn't any.
Toss up a 4 for the 4 goals they're about to let in.
Yeah, exactly. Like.
Where did the 4 people, like actual humans, watching that game at the rink?
Yeah, I have no
Dude,
idea, but
that's what I love
weird.
too. Before the anthem, they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Remove your hats if you have them." And it's like they're only the players on the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah. Just have to do it like normal, right? Or try to act like it's normal.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully Montreal can get fans in the building if they go, because
Looks
there'd be
like they will.
It'd be a good mix of Toronto and Montreal fans. I know Toronto fans would make the mission, so
Yeah.
that is for sure as well.
Oh yeah.
So
if they're allowed into Quebec, I don't even know.
yeah.
But yeah, I think we covered basically everything. I can't think of any other storylines going in. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure by next weekend we're gonna have a shit ton more to talk about.
Oh yeah, a ton.
Series that are closed out, so.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, you know, there's also so much that happens within a week's time that when something happens, if it happens like let's say on the Monday or the Tuesday, by the time we get to recording the episode, it's hard for us to remember everything, 'cause so much happens in a week, especially with such good hockey being played, and these are the cream of the crop when it comes to the NHL. So mans is hot, if you get me. So yeah, guys, we are up there in time. Holy, time flies when you're having fun. Am I right or am I right?
Ha ha ha.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of The Pond. Episode 45. We're almost up there at the big 50. And yeah, we got some good things planned ahead. Some more playoff hockey to go. That cup is not given out yet, so we still have a lot to talk about, right? So let's go to our sponsor for today, what he's got to say.
Oh, friggin' right, Spud.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate the call once again. Go follow us on our socials. We'll have it in the description of the podcast thing, so you can go read that. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and keep watching that playoff hockey, and we'll see you next week. So yeah, peace.
What up?
Peace, everyone.